Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallard Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana Newsdesk. Some faculty say the future of Indiana University's Kinsey Institute is in jeopardy.
The university has always been strongly in support of the Kinsey Institute and its work. What's going on now is that the support is not full-throated.
Just ahead, the larger impact on academic freedom. Once endangered, otters are thriving in Indiana.
We've had several sightings from Lake Monroe and from surrounding area.
Ahead, what the state is doing to maintain what it calls a healthy wildlife population. And an innovative way to think about the affordable housing crisis. How future housing could evolve 3D printing and mud. Those stories, plus the latest news headlines from around the state, right now on Indiana Newsdesk. Welcome to Indiana Newsdesk. I'm Joe Wren. For 75 years, the world-renowned Kinsey Institute, famous for its study of human sexuality, has been a distinguishing feature of Indiana University. But that connection could soon change, and Kinsey would be left to stand on its own. My colleague Ethan Sandwise joins us now for more. Hi, Ethan.
Hi, Joe. The Indiana University Board of Trustees had planned to discuss separating from the Kinsey Institute at its meeting today, but shortly before the meeting was scheduled to begin, they decided to table the issue. All of this has happened really quickly, and faculty are pleading with IU administrators to consider the irreparable harm they could do not only to the Institute, but to academic freedom. The Kinsey Institute has been controversial from its very beginnings when Indiana University professor Alfred Kinsey began studying and writing reports about human sexuality in 1947. There were even efforts early on to defund the Institute by protesters pressuring donors to end their support and government officials seizing allegedly obscene materials. Each time, the university thwarted these attacks. 7 decades later, defunding became a reality when freshman Republican Representative Larissa Sweet pushed a successful amendment to cut any state funds for Kinsey. She claimed that Kinsey researchers are conducting sexual experiments on children.
Who knows what they're still hiding? Could they be hiding child predators?
Democrat Matt Pierce, who represents the district where Indiana University is located, says those false claims have been long debunked.
This amendment is based on old, unproven allegations of conspiracies that did not exist.
Most of the Institute's money comes from grants, and it receives around $2 million a year from the university. IU says any financial impact from the new state law is negligible. Even so, the university proposes splitting from the Kinsey Institute. The plan calls for making it a nonprofit that would operate without university money, although the Kinsey collections would remain at IU. It's a partial divorce that's generated a lot of protest. Recently, demonstrators, a group of researchers, Bloomington city officials, and students, gathered around a bronze statue of Alfred Kinsey on the university's campus. Freshman Kylie Brown says keeping the Kinsey Institute part of the university is important.
I think that we can't consider ourselves the same way if we got rid of the Kinsey Institute as part of IU.
The organizer of the protest, Jennifer Bass, worked at the Kinsey Institute for 20 years. She says the administration is simply caving to political pressure. She helped organize a petition drive and held a scroll containing the names of 5,500 people who opposed the plan.
Something has to be done. I appreciate that. It's too late to go back to the legislature and say, no, we don't want this bill. But I believe strongly that there are other ways to do that other than separating the Institute.
Kinsey researchers like Professor Zoe Peterson say they weren't told about the proposal until 2 weeks ago, and they still have lots of questions.
It's really not clear to us, at least, that severing the Kinsey Institute from IU is necessary to ensure compliance with the law.
But protesters say it's not just about money, it's about academic freedom. IU Bloomington Provost Rahul Srivastava says he understands people feel uncomfortable with the plan, but splitting will ensure research will continue without violating the state law.
We are trying to make sure that the mission of Kinsey remains intact and we remain compliant with the law as it stands.
Claude Cookman, who served on the board of the Kinsey Institute for many years, says Kinsey needs outspoken support from the administration now more than ever.
The legislator who brought this bill has said she's still coming after Kinsey. They're not going to quit. So if whatever IU does in its relationship with Kinsey, IU itself is threatened by people like this.
So, Ethan, you have an update for us. Why did the trustees decide not to vote today?
It's hard to say. Until this morning, I thought they were going to vote. I was on my way to Indianapolis, and then I received word that they had tabled the vote. Allegedly, it's to give more time to revise this plan that they have. They've received a lot of pressure from petitions and things like that. Now, the chair of the Board of Trustees, Quinn Buckner, made a statement today. He said that against this backdrop and to permanently ensure the Kinsey Institute and its mission, Indiana University requires a mechanism to fund and operate the small piece of Kinsey Institute operations that have been supported through the university's general fund. And basically what he's saying there is they need some way to support the Kinsey Institute without directing potentially money from the state towards it. President Pamela Whitten of IU also spoke to this today. She said to Quinn Buckner, your decision this morning will provide us invaluable time to work together with our faculty, staff, with alumni and friends, and with other key stakeholders. We will consider how best to continue the legacy of the Kinsey Institute while complying with state law.
All right, Ethan, what's next?
Well, President Pamela Whitten says that she's going to get back to the drawing board with this, work this over with the legal counsel, folks at Kinsey and the provost, and they'll come up with another plan to hopefully ensure compliance while continuing the Kinsey Institute continues to do research. And the trustees will most likely discuss this at their next meeting in February.
All right. Thank you so much, Ethan. Appreciate your reporting. Now for the latest on this week's top stories, Callie Lichter joins us with news headlines. Hi, Callie.
Hi, Joe. A former employee at the IU Foundation will serve a year in prison for embezzling more than $300,000. Teresa Manners admitted to stealing the money over a period of about 4 years. Manners pleaded guilty this week to wire fraud. Voters in several communities elected a new mayor this week. Columbus, Terre Haute, and Bloomington will all have new leadership starting in January. Sarah Whitmire reports.
Carrie Thompson's victory was all but assured after winning Bloomington's three-way Democratic primary in May. Thompson didn't have a Republican challenger in the general election.
I never dreamed I would be elected mayor of this city that I very surprisingly fell in love with on a cross-country bicycling trip.
She led the Bloomington branch of Habitat for Humanity for 2 decades and most recently has served as the executive director of the Center for Rural Engagement on IU's campus. She used her background with Habitat to her advantage in the campaign, focusing on affordable housing.
Terre Haute, Indiana, how are we feeling tonight?
An upset in Terre Haute, newcomer Brandon Sackbun defeated incumbent Republican Duke Bennett.
A lot of people said, oh, you're not going to do it, and they're very negative in January, a little bit more positive in February, and we just built day after day after day the momentum, and we're going to keep fighting and turn Terre Haute around.
During his campaign, Sackbun highlighted the importance of forward thinking and progress for the city. He says his first order of business is tackling housing issues. Bennett congratulated Sackbun and assured him that the administrative transition will be a smooth and efficient one.
I would like to say that I couldn't be any more proud of what we've accomplished for the last 16 years. I think we've done a lot. A significant amount of things have been accomplished. The team I've had has been awesome. The support group I've had has been awesome. We've obviously tonight ends that run.
Sackbun is officially the youngest mayor of Terre Haute and the first Democratic mayor since 2008. In Columbus, the mayor's seat was open after Jim Lenup, who has held the office since 2016, announced last year he would not run for a third term. Republican Mary Furden easily won and will take the office in January. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Sarah Whitmire.
The referendum for the Monroe County Community School Corporation was a nail-biter. The measure passed, but by a little over 100 votes. The dollars will be used to expand early childhood education. Both the Indiana Democratic and Republican parties had reasons to celebrate Tuesday's election results. Democrats flipped several mayoral seats while Republicans continued to strengthen their advantage in rural Indiana. Political scientist Andrew Downs says it's hard to predict how much about 2024 from 2023's results since this year's races are so much more locally focused.
Potholes are not dealt with at the state level. Picking up leaves and removing snow, those aren't dealt with at the state level.
Downs did say that both parties can focus on areas where they scored key victories and look to build from those bases of support for next year. Microplastics in lakes and ponds can cause algae to grow out of control, depriving fish and other aquatic life of oxygen. That's according to new research by Purdue University. Tiny organisms eat algae, but microplastics can get in their way, causing gut blockages and other issues that limit how much algae they can eat.
It's not simply that, they're in the environment and it's kind of alarming that they're there, but that they're actually having not only direct but also indirect effects on how environmental systems function.
Too much algae in water can deprive fish of the oxygen they need to survive. It can also release toxic chemicals that make the water unsafe for animals and people alike. Hook says microplastic pollution in waterways is likely only going to get worse since global plastic production is going up. Terran Robotics, a Bloomington-based company, is tackling the affordable housing crisis by merging new technology with ancient building methods. Clayton Baumgarth went to the company's lab to learn more about what Terran hopes will be the future of affordable housing.
You may have heard of 3D printed homes, but what about 3D printed homes made from mud? That's exactly what Terran Robotics is attempting to create out of its lab in Bloomington to combat the affordable housing crisis.
We knew we wanted to solve it. My background is in AI and robotics. My co-founder's background is in construction. We just tried to figure out how can we bring these two together and solve this problem.
Their answer? Returning to the ancient building material known as earth. Terran says that homes made in this way are naturally fireproof, soundproof, bulletproof, insulated, and non-resource intensive.
The reason these materials are not used in much of the global north anymore is because they require a tremendous amount of physical labor. And it's often backbreaking labor. And labor, of course, in America, the Western industrialized world, is expensive.
The robotic machine runs autonomously via AI, laying clay and dirt in place, then compacting it, ultimately lowering labor costs. Later, it can be made to look similar to drywall or painted directly for a more organic look.
We honestly like it when it's just kind of raw earth because, especially here in Indiana, we've got beautiful clay. It's often red, sometimes you get a yellow. You can always color it.
The team noted that being based in the Midwest is a huge plus for them, and that if they can get this process to work in Indiana's varied climate, they can get it to work anywhere.
I think we are proudly Midwestern, and I think we're hoping to show that the Midwest is still doing some forward-thinking, progressive stuff, which I believe we are.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
And Joe, Terran says it currently has permits for 2 projects and 3 houses coming under contract in Columbus in the next year.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joe.
Coming up next on Indiana Newsdesk. Otter trapping season is about to begin. Ahead, why the state says it's critical to maintaining a healthy wildlife population. And plans for Columbus's riverfront project are taking shape. A look at the designs just ahead. These stories and more right here on Indiana Newsdesk.
I'm Billie Jean King. Women's sports changed the whole world.
With your voice, you leading the way.
The greatest mystery that Agatha Christie ever created was herself.
What do you suppose it's like falling down a rabbit hole?
We have much to be grateful for.
Sometimes in life you have those moments
in all its glory. With singing, dancing, magicians. Yeah!
Just what I wanted for Christmas. We have much to be grateful for.
The platypus have been granted this window into their world.
Can you tell me the truth?
What do you remember?
Welcome back to Indiana Newsdesk. The Indiana Department of Transportation plans to install bike lanes to State Road 45 or 10th Street on Bloomington's east side. As Lucas Gonzalez reports, the project has received mixed reactions, even among some bicyclists.
Anyone who's ever spent time on 10th Street by the College Mall knows it's usually crawling with motor vehicles. But there's not much bike or pedestrian infrastructure there. INDOT wants to add an east and westbound painted bike lane from the State Road 46 bypass to where 10th Street intersects with Pete Ellis Drive and Discovery Parkway.
Bloomington is a community that has a lot of pedestrian traffic that would have a lot of that bike traffic. So when we're looking at that, that's what things we consider.
Brian says projects like this are somewhat unique to Bloomington because many of the city's residents are students. And Brian says they're more likely to bike or walk to campus. The project would be similar to one INDOT did on State Road 46. In 2020, it installed bike lanes on a 1.41-mile stretch of that road.
We, again, want to make sure that our road improvements are done to help support the community, and we want to make sure that our community understands why we're doing something.
Other planned changes to 10th Street include new sidewalks, more crosswalks and pedestrian signals, and exclusive turn lanes for drivers. INDOT says the $9.8 million project will reduce traffic congestion and improve safety for bikers and pedestrians. But not everyone sees it that way.
The traffic's already so congested in this area that people don't pay attention as it is, and there is a lot of wrecks already, and just trying to get out of the parking spots here, the parking itself is just, it's a horrible place for anybody to be riding a bike. Even walking is kind of dangerous around here.
Skaggs owns a computer repair shop at 10th and the bypass. He doesn't think the painted bike lanes will be safe.
If it's not completely separated by like a median, then it's going to be in with traffic. And the problem with that being with traffic, people don't pay attention.
Deborah Corcoran, who owns an adjacent flower shop, feels similarly.
I don't even think the kids should be riding their bikes out on 45. It's so dangerous with all the curves. It's a lot of money to spend for just a few bike riders that go out there.
Even some cyclists don't think the project is perfect. Jerry Arvison, a cyclist of more than 3 decades, says while he'd still use the bike lanes if installed, they wouldn't be his first choice.
It might cause some confusion as to where a bicycle's supposed to go. Is a bicycle supposed to be on the multi-use path, or is the bicycle supposed to go in the bike lanes?
But still, he calls the project a step in the right direction.
You can't build brand new infrastructure all at once. But I think if we're widening that road, it probably makes sense to put it in.
Some residents, including Alan Rose, only get around by bike. Rose says the bike lanes are needed for East Side residents who can't afford cars.
More and more of the residentiality is being pushed out into the perimeter. The more affordable housing is further and further out, so you're going to have people that is their main mode of transit.
Alan also says the bike lanes should be protected. But like Arvison, he says this project is a leap forward. Some drivers say they don't see many bikers use 10th Street as it is. Others don't think they even should. Those who support the project say the new bike lanes will encourage more people to bike there. They also say bikers often use 10th to get downtown from the east. For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Lucas Gonzalez.
INDOT wants to start construction on the project in November of 2024. Columbus leaders say the city can finally proceed with the downtown riverfront redevelopment. The city sees the riverfront as an opportunity for economic development and better quality of life. The project has been in the works since 2016, mainly going through regulatory hoops. Erosion on both sides of the river and a century-old dam must be fixed. But the city sees the area as a front door that's been neglected for far too long. Plans include more green space, trails, beautification, and recreational opportunities. The approval of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers means the city can complete the project as designed. Next steps are funding approval by the Redevelopment Commission and City Council, then bidding and building.
We know that a lot's changed. You know, we've been through the pandemic, we've been through significant inflation with respect to building materials, concrete being no example, or no exception, and there's a lot of concrete in this design.
Original cost estimates were more than $8 million. The city hired urban economist James Lima to see if those numbers still work.
We believed when we proposed the project originally that it had a sound business case, that it made sense for us to do this from an economic perspective, as well as a safety perspective, an amenity perspective, a recreational perspective.
The city has secured state-ready and next-level trails grants and is working on others as well. November 15th will mark the start of one of Indiana's lesser-known conservation efforts, river otter trapping season. Clayton Baumgarth met with the Department of Natural Resource officers and hobbyist trappers to uncover why the season is important for maintaining healthy wildlife throughout the state.
In 1995, Indiana began restoring the river otter population by introducing 303 otters at 12 sites located all around the state. Otters had been on the endangered species list due to unregulated hunting and rapid habitat changes since the early 1900s. But their reintroduction was so successful that in 2005, North American river otters were taken off of the endangered species list. And with increased population numbers come increased problems for Hoosiers.
I've got ponds on our family farm that are next to the river, and used to be great fishing when I was a kid. The otter got into them and ruined them now.
Ernie is a part of the Indiana State Trappers Association, a group focused on connecting trappers and providing education to those interested in the hobby. In 2015, the Indiana Department of Natural Resources opened the first otter trapping season to allow folks like Ernie to trap up to 2 otters to curb the population. The season runs either until 750 otters have been trapped throughout the state or March 15th, whichever comes first.
I think they're fair numbers. Obviously down here in our part of the state, it's very easy to catch your 2. And we try to avoid them as much as possible till the fur becomes really nice in the wintertime.
Ernie often accidentally happens across otters. While using body grip traps or foothold traps for beaver and raccoons, he's often found an otter caught in their place.
I had caught so many incidental-wise that even right now I don't truly target the otter in Indiana because we're going to pick our 2 up just while we're beaver trapping. We've got a lot of beaver issue down here, so the beaver and the otter live in the same places, so odds are while you're beaver trapping, you're going to catch your otter anyhow.
Once they've caught an otter, trappers have to register their catch and turn in the skinned carcass and separated pelt. The meat from the otter can be eaten, but often isn't.
I'm not going to. They've got a really bad fishy smell to them. There's no way I'm eating that.
The carcasses are kept by the DNR in order to help collect data on local populations.
We take that carcass and we collect data from it about things like age, and that helps us build our population model, keep track of our river otter populations. We can look at other things too, like diseases.
Pelts that are turned in receive a CITES tag. CITES stands for Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species of Wild Fauna and Flora. These tags designate the pelt as sourced from a non-endangered species and allow them to be sold on the global market, where frigid countries like Russia often buy the dense furs.
And that's one of the things that marks fur bearers is 2 layers of fur. That's what adds a lot of value and why their fur is so good for that warm clothing.
The North American river otter is the only otter species in the world listed as not at risk of becoming a threatened population, allowing them to be sold in this way.
Our river otters are doing the best of all the otters in the world. Yay. But we take those things very seriously, obviously. We want to also help otter conservation internationally. So we tag all of those river otters.
If you're not a trapper and hoping to catch a glimpse of an otter this year, you might be surprised to learn some live closer than you'd think.
We've had several sightings from Lake Monroe. And from surrounding area, Clear Creek, like Lemon, Bean Blossom Creek, places like that. Occasionally they get spotted. We actually had one recently along Bean Blossom Creek just in the last couple months.
The otter population in Lake Monroe is small, though, so small in fact that Monroe County is one of 14 counties in the state where river otter harvest is closed. This makes spotting otters close by challenging, but not impossible. Auber says to look for web paw prints in mud, piles of scat called latrines, or certain trails in the snow.
They like to do this thing over land where they slide on their belly. So they do a bound, and then they slide. And they bound, and then they slide. So the tracks, especially in snow, can be really easy to tell, because if you're seeing a long slide and then some bounding, that's an otter.
Auber says that the trapping season is important not just for research and population control. The limited season allows trappers to maintain positive values around otters.
They don't think of them as, just a nuisance and something that needs to just be gotten rid of, and like, why did we reintroduce these dumb things, right? They feel like there's options for them to be able to deal with a problem when they have it, and they can keep a more positive image of the species as a result.
For Indiana Newsdesk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
November 15th not only marks the start of otter trapping season, but also beaver, muskrat, and long-tailed weasel. Well, that's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana Newsdesk is made possible in part by Smithville, fiber internet, security solutions, and voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Mallard Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. lawmg.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnership with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. And by WTIU members. Thank you.